Right now on the Daily Debrief, did this man kill 3 children and his girlfriend, or was she the victim of a drug cartel? Plus, an arrest in the disappearance of the daughter of a UFC fighter. Also, the story behind NFL player Kellen Winslow II's last-minute plea deal. And an update in the trial of a Colorado man charged with murdering his fiancée. The Daily Debrief brings you the day in court. It's Friday, November 8th.
Good to see everybody. No testimony in the retrial of a man accused of murdering a mother and her 3 children, but we'll get you up to speed on what's happened so far this week and take a look at what's coming next week in the case. Prosecutors say Henry Segura is the one who in 2010 killed his girlfriend, Brandy Peters, their 3-year-old child, and Peters' 6-year-old twin daughters. The motive, they say, was Segura's $20,000 child support debt. Segura says he's innocent, though, and that Peters was the victim of a drug cartel. He says she took $100,000 in drug money and that the cartel left a calling card when it killed her and the children. A jury in Segura's first trial deadlocked after 19 hours of deliberations. The defense wants to call James Carlos Santos to testify about this alleged cartel hit on Brandy Peters. According to court documents, Santos is in prison on a drug conviction. The defense says he used to be a member of a Chicago-based gang and that he hired victim Brandy Peters to make trips from Tallahassee, Florida to Texas to traffic cocaine for $8,000 a trip. Peters made the trips twice a month, according to the documents, and Santos warned Peters that her life was in danger after the cartel caught her skimming the alleged money. This testimony is expected when the case resumes next week. Attorneys Brian Buckmire, Mike Koribanics, and Katherine Smith are with us tonight for analysis. Let's all listen to late testimony yesterday from one of the defendant's ex-girlfriends. She says he texted her the night of the murders, but her memory is fuzzy as to where Segura said he was. This witness asked us not to record her face.
It would have been later in the evening. I was preparing to go to a party that night. So it would have been probably, I don't know, somewhere between 9 and 11. I'm not sure.
Okay. Fair to say, obviously, it's been a long time since.
It's been a long time.
Okay. Do you remember anything about where he said he was?
I'm not sure that he told me he was anywhere. I don't recall that he told me he was anywhere. I recall somehow I got the impression he wasn't at home or he was headed home. He may have said something. To be honest, I don't remember.
Did he remember anything about him saying about passing Publix or going to Publix or anything along those lines? No?
Vaguely, yes.
So possibly that he was talking to you about possibly on that evening going by a Publix or in the general vicinity of a Publix?
I remember that I was getting my nails done at a Publix, and so that could have been where the comment came from. I just don't remember specifically.
Yeah. Another of the defendant's ex-girlfriends testified about their volatile relationship, including when she called Segura's wife to tell her that she was having an affair with him. This witness also says she had to file a restraining order at one point against the defendant. Plus, she says Segura asked to use her gun just before the murders. Here's direct examination and cross.
I was just getting ready to go out of town. He came over there, lip quivering. He was red. He asked me, could he use one of my guns? And I told him, like, if I come across something in the street, you know, like a burner gun, I'll let him know. Because, of course, we were cool. A burner gun is like, my name ain't on it. Somebody in the street selling a gun. Or
So you're talking about a street gun, one that's not connected in your mind?
Not connected to me, yeah.
And you told him you let him know, but did you ever give him a gun like that?
No.
You didn't contact the local law enforcement.
No.
You contacted Crime Stoppers.
Yes, I did.
And you did that so that you could get paid money, correct?
Wrong. I did that for discovery or for if something was to happen to me or him. If I ended up in this situation, that was my thing that I was going to have with the date on it.
One of Segura's friends is an Army veteran and a firearms security specialist. He testified that back in 2010, he offered the defendant welding work in Afghanistan, making a 6-figure salary, but Segura could not go. The defendant couldn't get a visa because he owed that child support money. The same friend also testified that Segura had a .32 revolver, the same type of gun investigators believe is the murder weapon. Here again is direct and cross.
I seen it in the front seat of this vehicle, this Buick he used to own. He was getting ready for a job to head out. That's when I seen it.
Would have been around 2010?
It was prior to that. It was before that, months before that.
Months before November 2010?
Yes,
All right, so in the summertime 2010?
probably so.
June, July, somewhere in there.
Somewhere up in that time frame. It's been a while since
Okay.
we had that. You know.
And that would have been about the same time you're talking to him about the jobs in Afghanistan and stuff, correct?
Correct.
You never saw him with that gun after you saw him in the summertime, correct?
Correct.
And that was before he got shot, before he got that injury.
Correct.
Back during opening statements, the defense promised testimony from the victim's sister that could have shattered the state's timeline of the case. Prosecutors believe Brandy Peters and her children died between 6:53 and 7:37 at night, but the sister at one point said she had talked to Brandy hours later. The defense said that means Segura cannot be the killer.
Miss Peters' sister, Monica Peters, told Officer Jernigan from the Tallahassee Police Department the day after the murder that she last spoke to Miss Peters at approximately 10 o'clock p.m. the night before, which would have been the 19th, indicating that she was still alive at 10 p.m., which you'll see as we get into the cell phone records, is a half an hour after Mr. Segura is home. She's still alive at 10 p.m. And there's not going to be a dispute about that, just to kind of give you a preemptive view of the testimony pertaining to cell phone towers and the information extracted therefrom. Both Sergeant Corbett for the Tallahassee Police Department and the defense cell expert John Sawicki will testify that Mr. Segura's handset traveled home back down to Woodville, and he was home by 9:31 p.m. and then remained down in Woodville for the remainder of the evening, active on his phone. He was texting back and forth with one of his girlfriends trying to set up a hookup for later that night.
The problem is that the sister's testimony did not go according to the plan of the defense. Here's how the sister actually described the last time she spoke with victim Brandy Peters. This witness also asked that we not show her face.
Had to be around 4-ish, sometime in the evening, because I was just getting home from work. I had just pulled up in the yard, just got home, and she came over with my mom. She said they was going to pick the kids up from school.
Okay.
And she had asked me, did I want to ride? And I told her, so, no, I'm just getting home. I'm tired. I don't want to go.
So they get home between 4 and 5, and then you said eat dinner between 5 and 6?
Yes.
Were you trying to get a hold of her later that night?
Yes, I did. Well, my daughter was crying because usually my daughter liked to go over there. And I think that was probably around 9-ish or something. I tried to call her or whatever, and she didn't answer the phone. The phone was going to the voicemail. And my mom had called. It had to be around 9-ish, 10, something like that. And she called me and asked me, did I speak with her? And I told her, I said, no, I didn't. I said, I tried to call her phone a few times, and she didn't answer. It's going to the voicemail. And she said the same thing with me. I tried to call in, the phone going to the voicemail.
Here, the defense cross-examined the sister on the timeline. Did she actually speak with victim Brandy Peters at 10 p.m. or did she not?
No, sir. I might have told her I've tried to call her, and at the time when I was writing that statement, I could have probably been passed out of my mind. But I mean, I'm trying to write a statement, and my sister and her kids just being murdered. I just found them murdered in the house. I don't remember recalling telling her, because I know for facts that I didn't talk to her that night. It was no way possible that I could have talked to her that night. So I mean, maybe if I wrote on the paper, maybe it was saying that I spoke with my mom around 10-ish, 9-ish, 10 or something, and I told her that I tried to call her but didn't talk to her. Maybe that was what I was intended to write, and maybe I misinterpreted what I was writing with being overwhelmed and emotional. That could have possibly been the case.
I'm not asking you what you wrote. I'm asking you, do you recall?
No, sir, I don't.
Tallahassee police brought Segura in for questioning 1 day after the killings, and 10 days later, the police brought him in for a second interview. The mood shifted substantially, but Segura continued to deny being at Brandy Peters' house on the day of the killings.
We're doing as much as we possibly can on it, all right? And you're not being truthful about it with us. You're hiding things from us. We know you have a second phone. We know you're talking to other people. Okay, so let's get past that. Okay? Where's that phone now?
I don't have it. I didn't kill Brandon and my kid and her kids.
You were there. Okay?
What did Brandy do to hurt you, to upset you?
Nothing. Just it, nothing.
You
We wasn't upset with each other or nothing.
You were there. We have to get past that. Okay? You were there.
I wasn't there.
You were
On
there?
Friday, no, I wasn't.
Okay, when were you there?
Wednesday.
Okay. You weren't at home Friday.
Yes, I was.
I'm telling you, you were not at home Friday. You were over at Brandy's on Friday.
Okay, with me tonight, attorneys Brian Buckmire, Mike Koribanics, Katherine Smith. So, Brian, what do you make of this testimony of the sister? She misinterpreted what she was writing. Usually when you're writing a statement, don't you then sign it and review it and everything before it even goes into the officer's hands?
Absolutely. There's a number of steps that come through with giving your testimony in that type of manner. You write it down, someone reads it back to you, you ensure that there's no errors, and if there are errors, you cross them out in an initial. So there should have been a system of checks and balances to make sure that this statement was in fact correct. Her explanation, I don't know. It depends on what the jury is going to really interpret, but it sounds like she said 10 p.m. is when she last spoke to her sister.
A lot of different possible interpretations of it. That's for the jury to decide. Mike Koribanics, this gang cartel testimony that we anticipate out of this witness that the defense is making a big deal about in the pretrial paperwork and everything, that's going to be one of the big moments in this case coming up.
Absolutely. But yeah, I always am hesitant for the defense when they have to call a witness such as the one they're depending on. You make a promise in your opening statement, that witness better testify. You better deliver on that promise to the jury or you're really in trouble.
Exactly, and one of the promises already blew up, as we just discussed with that timeline potentially. Katherine, we got this testimony from these previous girlfriends. Does that border on character evidence? You're talking about all these other bad acts that this defendant is alleged to have done involving them?
I do, and I think it's like, just because you have dirt on your hands doesn't mean you have blood in your hands. And the idea that all these women have an axe to grind, certainly he wasn't the best boyfriend, but that doesn't make him a murderer.
So many questions to remain in this case. We're going to continue to follow it when testimony picks up next week. And still ahead tonight here on The Debrief, an arrest in the case of the missing stepdaughter of a UFC fighter. Plus, reaction from an attorney for Kellen Winslow II on the former NFL player's sudden plea deal this week. Those cases and others when we return. Manhunt has ended for a man suspected in the disappearance of Anaya Blanchard. U.S. Marshals arrested Ibrahim Yazid in Florida after a tip that he was in the area. He's charged with kidnapping and attempted murder. A local television station reports that Yazid started screaming at their crew as he was being taken to the hospital after being arrested hiding in a brushy area. Blanchard is the stepdaughter of a UFC fighter and was last seen on October 23rd. A judge has ruled that the family of a missing Connecticut woman does not have the right to know who is paying the legal fees incurred by the estranged husband accused of making her disappear. Jennifer Dulos has not been seen or heard from since late May, and her family fears she is dead. They've been wondering where Fotis Dulos is getting the money to pay his attorneys, but that information will remain secret. Fotis Dulos and his one-time girlfriend Michelle Troconis are accused of evidence tampering and hindering prosecution. They have pleaded not guilty in their cases. An attorney for former NFL player Kellen Winslow II is giving us an inside sense of what it was like to be part of Winslow's last-minute plea deal. 5 accusers said Winslow had perpetrated a series of sex crimes against him, ranging from rape during college to lewd conduct earlier this year. Prosecutors filed 12 counts, but at a trial over the summer, Winslow was convicted of only 3 counts. The jury acquitted on 1 count and deadlocked on all the others. That all led to a second trial, which started last week and ended with a plea deal, a last-minute plea deal, in fact, right before opening statements this week. The final outcome is on your screen. Winslow was convicted or pleaded guilty to 1 count as to each victim. Attorney Mark Carlos says the deal started with the defense going to the prosecution.
When we proposed, hey, we used a really low number, could that close this out? And he said, no, you got to come up a little bit. And then that's what started the whole kind of back and forth. And then we had about 25 minutes to deal with it on a break. And then we told the judge we needed just a little bit more. The judge gave it to us, because it would have been a 4-week-long trial, cost the county and the state of California, a lot of money to go forward with it. I mean, plea bargains are give and take between the parties. If there's something that you can use to your advantage, like in our case, it was saving the trauma to the victims as well as giving up his appeal. that was our bargaining chip, and their bargaining chip was you go to trial and you get convicted and you are going to go to prison for life. He is doing well. He's doing a lot better than he was actually leading up to the trial. Like I said, he's essentially almost in isolation, and the plea sort of gave him a little bit of finality too, where he's able to see a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, he knows there's a number that he has to get to in order to be released, and he's fine with that. Now he's sort of resigned to moving on to the next stage. As you probably know, there's no way to diagnose whether somebody has CTE while they're living, only when they're dead, but he may have symptoms which are consistent with the early stages of it, which may shed some light as to why he may have acted the way he did under certain conditions. And so that, in combination with the psychological evaluation that we've had prepared, and as well as character and statements from the family, those are the things that we'll be presenting, because nobody's presented a picture of Kellen Winslow other than just these horrible allegations. And so, we need to do that to convince a judge to bring the sentence down.
And we'll be watching that sentencing hearing. Everybody's back again. And here's what I want to know. And Mike Koribanics, I'll start with you. This deal came through because all the talks were last minute. Where I used to work, prosecutors offered deals in writing quite some time before the trial. Usually it was months, because the courts could set deadlines on the latest point when these kind of deals could happen. So, Mike, is my experience out of whack from reality here, or does this last-minute plea deal situation happen in jurisdictions other than California?
No, it happens, and it happens more often in jurisdictions like California with this case where you have victims. I think Mark Carlos was an excellent attorney, and he sounded very seasoned. And he said there are give and takes. And when you have so many victims testifying, I'm sure a lot of them didn't want to go through this again.
Katherine Smith, it was interesting to hear him use the word victims and trying to save the victims from reliving the testimony, because in the first case, he was basically trying to paint the victims as liars.
No, you're right. I mean, this is the thing. Once you plead guilty, you're basically, you are admitting that these people are victims. And also, interestingly, this really exposes Mr. Winslow to a lot of civil liability. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
Oh, certainly. We can wait for the civil cases to be filed any day here, or maybe after sentencing. Brian Buckmire, the CTE comments from the defense attorney, they're also interesting, because some people were talking here that, his hesitation in accepting the deal, and some of his other behavior was just strange.
I think the CTE comments are very intelligent, because you got to remember, as much as Mark Carlos is coming out here to give commentary to Law and Crime Trial Network, he is still the defense attorney for Kellen Winslow II. So every move he makes should be a chess move, and I think that's a moving of his pawn to say, hey, this is my next move. I'm going to be bringing up CTE come February for sentencing, and I want to make sure that's out there as often and frequently as possible.
Exactly. I expect a lot of testimony out of that, and he's put it on the table very clearly here. I'm going to talk about this in an attempt to get the least sentence possible, the lesser sentence. So we'll be watching for that. Cross-examination of the state's star witness in the Colorado trial of a man accused of beating his fiancée to death last Thanksgiving. Patrick Frazee is accused of murdering flight instructor Kelsey Barrett, with whom he had a child. Crystal Lee, formerly known as Crystal Kenny, is charged with tampering with Barrett's cell phone. She flipped and testified to cleaning up the murder scene after she says Frazee killed Barrett. Barrett disappeared after surveillance footage showed her grocery shopping with her baby. Other surveillance footage places Frazee at the crime scene 11 times the day authorities say he killed Barrett. He told police he'd only been there once that day. Cameras are banned, however, in the courtroom. The defense cross-examined Lee for 2 hours, asking her why she failed to call the police after she admitted to 2 aborted attempts to kill Barrett herself. Lee also admitted to driving all the way to Colorado from Idaho with the baseball bat presumably used to kill Barrett. Why did she do it? That's what the defense wanted to know. The defense also dug into Lee's plea deal, which might allow her to skip prison entirely for testifying that Frazee was the one who finally killed Barrett. And finally tonight, a chance for our panel of experts to defend this client. Registered sex offender Brian Sherman is under arrest again on accusations he groped a woman whose job it was to dress up as a princess at Disney World. Sherman is accused of approaching the woman with his wife, saying that she was dressed as his favorite character and then making his alleged illegal move. The alleged victim couldn't get out of the grip, reports say, and began shaking and crying afterwards. So, Brian Buckmire, I don't want to make light of this, but this thing has several layers of creepy and weird all mixed in together with one another. What's the defense?
I think you lean right into the creepy and weird, and I think if it's Disney World or wherever it may be, there's gonna be photography, there's gonna be video, so you might not be able to get out of that. I think you gotta kind of fall on the sword and be like, hey, this guy's got a really weird sexual fetish that doesn't allow him to create the mens rea or the mental capability of knowing right from wrong, and you see where that goes.
Okay, if I were defending this guy, I'd be looking for some kind of a deal. Mike Koribanics, am I off base with that, or are you looking for the deal too? You want to be the prosecutor in this case, right?
You're right, because I would say fairy tales don't come true, and you would be a criminal and you'd be a convicted sexual predator.
Exactly. Katherine Smith, any defense for this guy that comes to mind in your brain?
Man, this is a tough one, but I have to agree with Brian. You got to lean into the weird and say, you know what, this guy is mentally ill, he has some problems, and maybe he'll take a Winslow plea.
You know, one thing I was looking at, Buckmire, is that, you know, we don't know exactly what character it was. Apparently it was a princess character. Would it have been any weirder if it was Daisy Duck or something else like that?
I think it would be weirder, but you've got to try something. I don't think this is a triable case, but I think that there are facts and issues here that you can lean in to try to negotiate the best type of plea. Kind of like what Katie was saying, this is a tool to negotiate, maybe less of a trial. And I don't know whether he's painting in the wind or dancing with Sebastian the Crab, but either way, I don't think it's going to work well for him.
Mike Koribanics had the prosecutor's line there. We can tell, Mike, that your former prosecutorial colors are showing through there. Fairy tales don't come true. You gonna say that in front of a jury?
Well, I'd sound a little goofy if I said that, I think, maybe.
You just say it on TV, not to the jury. Is that what you're saying here?
Absolutely.
Okay. Maybe I want to back up a little bit more here. We were talking about the Patrick Frazee case, and we've been following this. Again, cameras banned from the courtroom. But, you know, who do we believe in this case, Katherine? Do we believe this woman sitting on the witness stand here talking and saying, well, you know, I was involved in all of these trips. I got a poisoned Starbucks drink, brought it over, but I didn't go through with it. And then I brought a pipe and I didn't go through with that either. And then we believe her when she says, oh, he finally did it.
I mean, there was just way too much going on for me to believe that she had absolutely no role, and there's way too much incentive for her to lie. But that said, that videographic evidence placing him there for so many times is hard to get away from.
We're going to continue to watch that case as well. And that's all the time we have on the Debrief today. Thank you for watching this week. We'll be back on Monday with more live trial coverage starting at 9 a.m. We'll see you then.